So I've been fortunate to go to the theater a bunch of times this year and to watch a lot of different movies. And I shouldn't say a lot of different movies, they've been mostly horror related. And this year is particularly, particularly a good year for horror. I found that lots of things for this year there's a great range that's happening. And I very much appreciate this year. Not sure if it's the best year of horror, but it's definitely been a great thing to see. If you haven't seen these movies yet, I do recommend them in streaming. So I'm just going to name a few and talk about them a little bit. So the first Well, I can't remember. I don't have notes or anything, so I'm going to be talking on the fly. So I did see Sinners this year, absolutely loved it. Do understand how there could be an argument about it actually not being a horror movie. I can see that. I do think it is a horror movie, but I do think there's a lot of other elements and things don't mean a basic don't mean what is being presented to you. So in that movie, it's twin brothers that are going to make a blues event, and the movie happens over one night, and there are different people that they recruit for that event, and chaos ensues with that. Um, and I'm not going to really say much more because everything is kind of part of the horror, kind of part of the surprise, and kind of means something other than it is. So, at least in my opinion, you could also just watch it as nothing means anything else, but I don't want to ruin it for anybody as far as how I translated the movie. But I thought it was shot really beautifully. I loved the music. I love blues music. And the acting was done well. I think that a lot of the things that I interpreted or the things I didn't know how to interpret but thought they had a different connotation to them or whatever, I think it made it so much better. I think it takes a while to ramp up, but in that time, you're doing lots of character building. There's lots of setting that's being enriched. It's just chef's kiss. I mean, I absolutely adored that movie. Long movie, but it didn't feel long. It felt very purposeful about what was happening. Not a perfect movie. I would say that there's definitely some things that were kind of rough, but absolutely loved it. Was great and very refreshing because it's not a typical horror. And it is possible that it won't be interpreted by you as a horror. And I think that's fine. It's one of the things I love about horror is because it can look a lot of different ways. It can be presented to you in lots of different ways. Like there could be this uh in your face blunt, horrific acts. It could be like a hostile situation. It could be something like a Saw or something like a slasher or whatever. And uh, it's very gory it follows a predictive pattern sometimes, it can be like that, but it can also be very quiet, kind of sinister, kind of I don't even know how to describe it. Like this was you would know if you watched this movie, certain events are happening and the dread starts piling and the suspense really starts going. And I think that if suspense was a elastic band, they pulled that elastic so tight. Um, so I think that the ramp up and I think that the feeling of dread and waiting for it to snap, I think was there. And I think they did a really good job of that. So that's what I'm gonna say there. And it was a majority of the cast, I believe, was people of color and marginalized communities. So in that way, it was awesome as well. It's not your typical cast that you would see in a horror. Um, Another one that I saw, and I actually didn't like this movie, was Together. It's not like I hated the movie. I didn't like it. I thought that the scariest moments were kind of presented in a way to just be dropped. I don't feel that the most interesting parts that were the spookiest were given breath. And there were parts of the movie that were interesting. I Again, this is a very different take on horror. It's body horror, which is completely different than Sinners. And whether you like the movie or not, I think it was worthwhile. I think it's a little bit rinse and repeat. It's not, I don't want to say it's something I'm going to hype up all that much. I'm not going to say don't watch it. It definitely had thought to some of it. I know it has its controversies. I haven't been involved enough with what these controversies are and whatever. I think there's a copyright potential issue. When this goes out, you can look into that if you're interested, but yeah, I didn't particularly like the movie, but I liked the idea. I liked, again, a very different feel for this movie. And what Together was, as far as a synopsis of the whole movie, I realize I didn't give that to you originally, is a couple that have moved to, like, I want to say a very isolated um, section of the state, very like it's a cabin in the woods type thing. One is a teacher, the other one is a musician. And I get the sense that there's quite a bit of conflict because he's been a down and out kind of musician for a while. And there's a lot of conflict between the two as far as whether, as a couple, they were going to stay together. And then something is happening that makes them be together. So I'm gonna leave that there. I mean, we know from the posters and whatever, the togetherness that I'm talking about. Um, so concept I liked quite a bit. Reality, practicality wise, not so much. It wasn't my kind of movie, but you know, still very different, very interesting, and not a movie based off of grief. at least not based off of grief. And Sinners wasn't based off of grief in the traditional sense of grief. But I think there are parts of the movie where you think of grief, for sure. But I don't think that was the main point they were trying to hit home. I saw Weapons. Now, Weapons was just fun. I mean, not everybody's going to see the humor. Not everybody is going to see the value. Just like in Barbarian, a lot of people were like, that's not a comedy. And I'm like, it was hilarious. It was. To me, it was over the top. It was exaggerated. It was, and it didn't have a laugh track to it. It didn't go boom, boom, and wait for you to know that they told a joke. It was just presented in this bizarre manner. And I thought Weapons was like that as well. I appreciated Weapons because there was dialogue where I'm like, writing wise, it's not great dialogue, but in a real sense, it's an amazing dialogue because there is a moment where this person has a dream sequence and it's just so bizarre. And he wakes up and he's like, he exclaims and he swears and whatever. And I'm like, who hasn't woken up that way? Who hasn't? And then there's a point where, and this is a small background moment, but there's a point where there's a mom and she's holding her kid and she's overwhelmed with everything that's happening. And she's just like exclaiming about everything that's around her and how everything is wrong. And oh my gosh, and I'm just emoting. And then a guy runs through her house in pursuit of whatever. And she goes, oh, there's a man, and what I just thought that somebody thought about these things. Somebody thought about the reality about these things and how they're actually funny. And so the movie was great that way. I think the movie, it had some spooky moments. I don't think it's my favorite horror, but I do very much appreciate that kind of horror. I do very much appreciate a horror that can make a funny moment without it being a funny moment, if you know what I mean. So definitely am recommending that. And I realized again, I didn't tell you what the movie was about. It's been everywhere, so I assume you already heard. But if you haven't, one night, all the kids in this one classroom, or I shouldn't say one night, at 2, what was the time? 2 something in the morning, all these kids ran out of their house and disappeared and weren't seen from since, except for this one kid. And the movie goes in chapters. There's different points of view of different people in this small community having to do with this event. And that is actually, the running out of the house has already happened when the movie has started. The movie is the aftermath of this. I will say the theater, at least in my experience, the theater was a good place to view this movie. However, I will say, because the theater is really loud usually, I have to wear earplugs. But if you're going to do that, there is a narrator that's a child's voice, and that is hard to hear when you're doing that. So it's a movie where if you're going to see it and you need to do that, I do recommend you have some kind of closed captioning or something, assistive device that you're able to access at that time. Because I think that I missed a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end because of that. But I don't say the bulk I missed. I think it was just the child narration points. So I will say that I did see just last week, I saw The Toxic Avenger. Now, I'm not sure who watches this that has seen the original Toxic Avenger. It's not the same story. It doesn't follow the same things. And I feel it wasn't as good. It wasn't as over the top. It wasn't as ridiculous, but I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good time. In this rendition, there's a person whose partner has passed away. She has a son. He's taking care of the son. And I don't know how long ago she passed, but it's very awkward, the relationship between the two. The boyfriend of the passed away mom is trying to be like the cool person, trying to get the stepson to open up or whatever. And he's a janitor for this corporation that is supposed to be a health corporation. And I don't know how the health corporation ties into toxic waste, but somehow it does. There's a lot of toxic waste that has to be disposed of. And maybe that's just it. So he's a janitor. He finds out that he has cancer. Chaos ensues. Somehow he becomes this kind of anti-hero, superhero, whatever entity. And yeah, he's gonna take down the big bad of this corporation. And if you've seen Troma films, you know they're kind of over the top, they're extra exaggerated, they are trying to do the most. They're not necessarily trying to do it well, they're just trying to do the most. And some are gonna hit, some are not gonna hit, but it's just, you know. And I was talking to my boyfriend about this, and he thinks that there's a few nods potentially with some superhero movies that happened after the original Toxic Avenger based off of some of those things. I think that some other movies, with the way the blood spurts in this extra way and the way that the gore is done and whatever, has been replicated in a few other things. So I definitely appreciate the Toxic Avenger. I don't think was a theater needed experience. I don't think I got more out of it for that. I do, along that line, I do think that the Weapons was really good to see in theater, and I do think Sinners was really good to see in theater, but together, it didn't have to be. And I think Toxic Avenger is the same. I don't think it has to be in theater. I think the other two, scope-wise, it would have been. It's a great thing. I think Sinners more than Weapons, if I'm being honest. I think Sinners from the scope was just massive, and it could have been a theater or an IMAX experience. I would have appreciated the IMAX as well. So those are the ones that have come out. I'm thinking that there is more that's going to come out later. I know I'm kind of humming and hawing about going to see The Long Walk. I do want to see how that plays out, because it was a short story, I want to say. I know it's Stephen King, but was it a standalone or whatever? I don't know enough, and I'm keeping myself in the dark for a reason. I want to go and see and make my own predictions. Now, will I see it in theater or will I wait for it to stream? That's the question. That's what I'm ending up with. There's a movie coming out, Good Boy, that looks like it's about a dog saving its family from evildoers, that kind of evil entity horror. That might be interesting. But if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to look up if the dog passes. And if the dog does, I'm going to pass on that film. Because every time there's a film like Marley and Me or whatever, I'm like, it's a memoir. It's going to make me feel really sad. I'm not sure if I'm there. I like lots of different types of horror. But I don't know if I can do it. No. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I don't think I'm the only person in the boat. I think that almost every single person is going to be Googling, does the dog die for that movie? I think that everybody's going to have that concern, because it's like, are you a good boy? But if you're a good boy, I don't want you to die. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually seeing, I have to look up what else is coming out this year. I'm not quite sure horror-wise. This is one of the things that makes me a horrible YouTuber. I have no idea what's coming up. But you know what? This year has come up with a lot of different types of horror that I have. Even if I don't fully enjoy the film, I enjoy the journeys that they take me on. And I enjoy what they were attempting to do. So I do think this year is a really good year to see some incredible movies in theater. I'm happy about that. I'm happy that the theaters have some really great things. Oh, here's another one that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Him. And I think that's the first sports horror that I will have seen. I don't know. Like I don't know if it's a possession, I should say, horror. I think it is. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know quite where it's going. So if you take the span of the horror that has come out this year, we have like a historical drama, I don't even know what to call it, of Sinners. You have, this body horror of Together. You have this kind of black comedy horror that's weapons. You have this over the top, ridiculous, almost non horror of Toxic Avenger. For The Long Walk, I think it's just this dread. I don't think that there's any, well, I don't actually know because I haven't seen it. I can't tell you, but it doesn't seem like it would be something that has a lot of jump scares. It seems like something you would just dread because you know at the beginning what might be the circumstance. And like I said, I haven't seen the film, so I can't tell you how it's set up, but that's what I think. There's a point of view of a dog. I think Good Boy is going to be all in the dog's point of view. So if there's that, then, and then there's a sports horror. I mean, talk about variety. This is awesome. We don't usually get this. We usually get like a year where all they want to do is possession films. All they want to do is grief. All they want to do is whatever. This is a buffet of lots of different flavor. So I'm excited about that. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit what excites me with horror and what this year's horror is and whatever, because I haven't been able to check in about what I've been seeing and give you full reviews. But let me know if there's something that you're interested in and that that's coming out this year and you're really pining for and whatever. I'll get excited with you. And in the meantime, I hope that you're watching something really interesting for you. I hope that whatever you're doing in whatever circumstance you're in, you're having the best time. And I'll talk to you later.